Tonight on GamePoints 365, we have a voice actor strike looming, Volition closes its doors after almost 30 years in working, and PlayStation Plus increases its price to ludicrous levels. All that and more in just a moment, but first I want everyone here to know this is an Audience Interactive podcast. So if you're watching live here at Twitch TV/GamePoints, or later at any myriad of video hosting platforms, feel free to comment on these stories as we go through them. Links to all of them will be provided down below. I recommend you all go take a look at them. And of course, if you like what you see here, you know what to do. Moving on to the very first story of the week here, let's talk about the looming voice actor strike. Now, this is not the first time the voice actors in the game industry went on strike. They did so back in 2016 or so for almost a full year. And it did have a noticeable impact on the industry. A lot of games were delayed. Sometimes they went to outside of union help, and the results were noticeable in some cases. But we seem to be on the eve of another one. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say right now, this does not mean a voice actor strike will happen. But it is important to keep note that they have voted to authorize for it. What I'm going to show you here is a statement from SAG-AFTRA, which is essentially the union that runs not only a good chunk of the actors on strike right now in Hollywood, but also a lot of the voice actors who were kind of a separate part of SAG-AFTRA, who weren't necessarily joining the general strike with the workers and the actors and writers in Hollywood. But they might be joining them soon for many of the same reasons. To the article itself. SAG-AFTRA's National Board has voted unanimously to send strike authorization vote to SAG-AFTRA members in preparation for the union's forthcoming bargaining dates with signatory video game companies, which include the following: Activision, Blindsight, Disney Character Voices, Electronic Arts, Epic Games, Formosa Interactive, Insomniac Games, Take-Two Productions, VoiceWorks, WB, and more. Now, keep in mind, that's a lot of big names on there. Activision, EA, we know those, Disney, Epic, the makers of Fortnite, Take-Two, these are the guys that do Grand Theft Auto. A lot of big name studios here. Now, what are they asking for? Well, let's go on. It's been nearly a year since the SAG-AFTRA's video game contract, the Interactive Media Agreement, was extended beyond the original expiration date as we negotiate with the companies for critical terms SAG-AFTRA members need. Unfortunately, throughout the negotiations, the companies have failed to address those needs. For this reason, the negotiating committee of the National Board unanimously agreed that the union should have member-approved strike authorization in hand when bargaining resumes on September 26. That does not mean that if September 26 hits and there's been no deal reached, that they will instantly go on strike. What it means is that a strike is officially on the table and can be used as a bargaining chip in negotiations, at least from my rudimentary understanding of what's going on here. Back to the article itself. Although key issues like wages that keep up with inflation and protections against unrestrained use of artificial intelligence are common sticking points in the negotiations, the Interactive Media, say video game, agreement is a separate contract from the TV theatrical streaming contracts which SAG-AFTRA members are currently striking, which is why voice actors haven't quite joined the common strike going on with the Hollywood and TV side of things yet. Moving on to, we're going to go click past some of these quotes, get right to what they're actually asking for. We don't need paragraph after paragraph of Fran Drescher speaking. Returning to the statement. In addition to AI protections, SAG-AFTRA is seeking the same wage increases for video game performers as those who work in the film and television contracts. An 11% retroactive to expiration and 4% increase in the second and third years of the agreement, necessary for members' wages to keep up with inflation. As an aside, that does seem somewhat similar. Video games make more money than Hollywood does these days, and as such, the performers in them should be making, well, Hollywood money. Admittedly, sometimes video games cost more than a movie does, so there are things like that to consider. But to say, oh, you just work in a video game, you're not an actual star, really isn't as apt as it used to be even a decade ago when the original contract was signed. Or actually, the current contract, I think, was signed at the end of 2016. Maybe 2017, so it hasn't been a decade. Either way, I digress. Back to this. The union is also asking for on-camera performers to have the same 5-minute per hour rest period that off-camera performers are entitled to. That seems fucking easy, right? If you're screaming into a microphone for 60 minutes straight, let them have a fucking 5-minute break. That doesn't seem that bad. Also needed, a set medic present when stunts or hazardous work is performed, just like on film or television set, prohibitions against stunts on self-taped auditions, and vocal stress protections. Having a medic makes sense, especially if it's dangerous. You get hurt, you need to have someone there that kind of knows what they're doing, keep long-term damage from happening, because even a basic sprain can go out of control if you think you're okay and keep working on it. As far as prohibitions against stunts on self-taped auditions and vocal stress protections, I need to know exactly what they mean by that. I'm assuming stunts on self-taped auditions means, hey, you're going to audition for this role, but you need to send in a demo reel of what you can do. And if it's not filmed on a professional situation, they're afraid someone might get hurt trying to impress a director. I think that's what that kind of turns into. As far as vocal stress protections goes, that could mean anything. I have no idea. How you doing, Coco? Good to have you in chat. Moving on as we go here. A successful strike authorization vote does not initiate a strike. Instead, the strike authorization permits the National Board to declare a strike if the video game companies fail to negotiate fairly with SAG-AFTRA for the benefit of its members. A slanted way of saying this is going to be on the table. Don't make us use it. The union is fighting for protective language in the contract that will require informed consent and appropriate payment for the creation and use of digital replicas for the training of AI systems with our members' performances. That, I think, is probably going to be the biggest sticking point, because that's a lot of it with going on with the writer's strike and the actor strike as well, is AI performances. Now, a lot of it too is streaming residuals, but that doesn't necessarily affect the games media, the game side of things all that much. But the reason why I do think the strike might actually happen is because they're part of SAG-AFTRA, and SAG-AFTRA is currently having a massive strike in Hollywood, like I was alluding to earlier. And the more they can bring people into that strike, the more pressure they can apply. So the video game side of the negotiations, the voice acting side of the negotiations, are probably, in my opinion, I don't have any inside access to this, being pressured to go on strike to add pressure on places like Sony, Warner Brothers, even your bigger boys like EA and Activision, which have other miscellaneous deals in the entertainment industry as well. The more pressure they can apply, the more businesses feel the pinch, they can start getting their demands through, which is something they desperately need, because one of the reasons, once again, in my opinion, why the strike has been going on so long with the writers and actors in general is because they have no leverage. There were so many things produced and in the can right now, and they can stretch out what they have coming up, that they don't need to bend to their demands anytime soon. For example, they're just delaying films 2 or 3 months. Dune was supposed to come out in December. They pushed it back to sometime next year. And you're going to start seeing more of that as Hollywood just starts going, we can stretch things out. It's no problem. As these, I keep using Hollywood interchangeably. The studios, the streaming services, etc., keep stringing out content going, we have plenty. And I do think while they keep saying the streaming residuals are a big part of it, and I do think they are, I think one of the major hangups is AI. Because love it or hate it, AI is sticking around. It is not going away. And it will only improve. And it will improve to the point where you won't need actors anymore. Anyone telling you otherwise is insane. I don't necessarily want to see that future, but it is coming. Which is why they're so desperate to stop it, or at the very least get paid off of right now. Because when that happens, the money in Hollywood is going to dry up when it comes to actually acting in it, and it is all going to come down to programming the perfect actor. It's coming. Take a look at chat here real quick. The only desperate thing I've truly seen is studios offer contracts with influencers, but the contracts are probably so bad they get shut down. That I don't know. I do know that there's a lot of people who are on-camera personalities who are not represented by a union at all, who have made their living on YouTube, either doing small acting bits or just considered influencers, that would have no problem taking a job as a quote-unquote actor or presenter or performer of some kind, who at least have some stage presence. This is one of those things where, while I remember the hashtag performance matters back in 2016, and I do believe that is the case, that there's not necessarily as easy a job as people think it is, I think that this time around, the voice actors are even in a more precarious position when it comes to bargaining than they were even then. You are going to see a whole. Where do I want to go with this sentence? Let me think about it. You're going to see this stretch out on and on and on because at the end of the day, too, these streaming services just aren't profitable. And while it's easy to point out at a company making record profits every year, that does not mean there is money to go around. I know that sounds counter to what you might think it does, and I'm not going to go into the full details of it here. But I think that both game developers and publishers and movie producers and publishing houses and all that are far more in danger of collapse than they are willing to admit. And with the economy slowing down, with what I think a recession, if not a depression, on the verge of happening here soon, I think you're just going to see places go, well, we're just going to shut down and we'll never open back up. And we actually have some studio closures and layoffs that we're going to be getting into later on. I do think that is what's going to happen. Take a quick look back at chat here again. Lots of TikTokers and Instagram have claimed to be offered roles, production, etc., that many have refused due to not being satisfied with their offer. And the offers are probably not enticing because even the studios know they have the upper hand right now. I don't necessarily think that's the case of influencers. I think that you might have studios saying, hey, do you want to be in this role here? And they're probably actually offering them peanuts because they're like, oh, they're an influencer. Who cares? They'll jump on the role to be in Hollywood, not realizing that some of these influencers already have millions and millions of fans and they don't really need the fame or the fame in that case. They're looking for cold, hard cash. There is a disconnect. The people who are running these companies aren't necessarily people who are savvy with internet culture or internet fame or how everything has slowly been turning to this. There is a little bit of stuck in the past mentality with a lot of what's going on here, for certain. And I'm not picking sides necessarily in this conflict here. I do think that in this specific case with the voice actors, some of the demands seem on their face reasonable. Of course, keep in mind this is a statement from one side of the negotiations. Of course, it's going to be slanted toward whatever they wish it to be. But a 5-minute break every hour doesn't seem that insane when you're using your voice constantly. As some asshole who does this once a week for like 30 minutes, my voice starts hurting by the time I'm done with the show. So I can only imagine being animated and acting and screaming for an hour straight. Yeah, I'm going to want to take a sip of water like I'm going to do right now. And this wouldn't be the first voice actor strike. Like I said, back in 2016, they went on strike for almost a full year. I think it was 360 days. I do think that this is going to happen. I do think they're going to go on strike. And I don't think developers and publishers care. I should say specifically publishers. I don't think the publishers care. Because while I think it's true that the voice actor union might be getting pressure from the greater SAG-AFTRA union to go on strike faster than normal to kind of help join in the whole solidarity idea, the opposite of that fence works as well. Big movie studios will have influence on game publishers to go, hey, join us in holding out and see if we can't break them even faster. And I said this on the voice actor strike, but I think it's even worse for them now. I don't think they have the leverage they think they do. And that sucks. Because I think there are some amazing voice actors out there. I do think that there are some unforgettable roles that people like Elias Tofexis, like Steve Bloom, Matt Mercer, Yuri Lowenthal, Travis Willingham, even your mainstays like Troy Baker and Nolan North, Laura Bailey, Jennifer Hale, etc. I think there are certain performances that they deliver that are memorable. We hear I'm sure that as I was listening off that list of names, you could hear some of their voices in your head of a favorite character of yours. It does matter. But I don't think it's going to matter enough at the end of the day, especially on the precipice of a recession. Once again, in my opinion. I could be wrong, though. Let me know what you think down below. If you think this is a good idea or not. If you think their demands are unreasonable. If you think that these companies should give them whatever they're asking for. I want to know what you think out there. Moving on. This has been a theme for the past, it feels like a couple years at this point, but we have yet another studio closure. And this one kind of hurts because I was a big fan of their past catalog. Volition shutting down. I'm going to go ahead and read to you their statement here. 30 years of making games. There's only a handful of studios in the industry that have been around for 30 years, and we took a lot of pride of Volition being one of them. Volition has been around long enough for some folks to forget what we made, but they certainly know their games. Refrains such as Volition made Descent, or Volition made Free Space, or Volition made that Summoner RPG with the hilarious video. Summoner sucked. Free Space was one of the best space sims of all time. Descent was solid. Red Faction Guerrilla is one of the best open world sandboxes, by the way, you could ever play. Go get the remastered edition if you can. Moving on. Sometimes it's easier to remember the games more than the studio that built them, especially for those that have been around as long as we have. But all good things must come to an end, and so it is with Volition. After 30 years, Volition has closed, and we wanted to say a few final words. I'll let you guys read that later on your own, but the point is they are shutting down after 30 years. This is not even a series of layoffs. This isn't a trimming down. This is that studio is done. Over. And if you look back at their recent games, it's not necessarily hard to see why. Agents of Mayhem didn't really set the world on fire, despite being some weird spin-off of Saints Row, kind of, but not really. And of course, now that we're talking about Saints Row, it would be remiss of me not to mention the horrendously received reboot that recently came out and is lining bargain bins across retail stores everywhere. It is never a good idea to go to war with your fans, and Volition social media somewhat did that. Maybe not as full-throated as it happens sometimes, but there was definitely a, shall we say, throw the fan base under the bus for the actions of a few assholes. And I'm sure that had detrimental effect to the sales of Saints Row. Furthermore, it really did feel like a game that was ashamed of its own past and namesake. Now, is that one thing itself enough to tank a studio? Well, sometimes yes. But in this case, Volition was owned by Embracer Group, and as we all know, Embracer Group has had a massive turbulent financial times over the past few months, or even a year at this point, after that Savoy Media Group deal that was supposed to be over $1 billion fell through on them, to the point where they were closing another studio called Campfire Cabal, which I think opened up only in April, and as well having layoffs at Gearbox, another now Embracer-owned subsidiary. We don't know the full number of layoffs at Gearbox itself, but they fired off some people earlier in June, I believe. And now we're having even more people saying, hey, we were just let go, as Embracer tightens the belt even more. In this article here from GamesEditors.biz, it talks about how localization specialist Alan Jacquemart, for instance, posted about Lincoln on Time, talking about how he was laid off. Senior Business Development Manager Steve Gee also posted on LinkedIn that he got laid off from Gearbox as well. These layoffs are going to continue happening. I know I keep saying this every week, but it is a drum that I'm going to bang over and over again. Despite this being a banger year for video games, despite companies saying we're doing very well, we're having record profits, despite the criticism and compliments on both sides of the aisle, the entire industry, nay, the entire economy is on the precipice of collapse. There's a reason why studios are trimming the fat. There's a reason why games are getting canceled, people getting laid off, studios closing. And it's not because suddenly one day they wake up and go, well, fuck Volition, I guess I never liked them anyways, close them. It's because they see what's coming and they are battening down the hatches. So please, for the love of God, if you work in the games or anywhere in general and you see this video, tighten up your resume, save some extra money, perhaps change a few lifestyles here and there. If you're planning on a trip next year, maybe think about taking that money instead and putting it into savings, because shit's coming. Please, for the love of God, be prepared. Worst case scenario, I'm an insane kook on the internet ranting to no one, and nothing happens. Then you have some extra dosh to throw toward whatever random thing you want. But if I'm right, Might save you a lot of hardship in the future. So turn to chat here down here over at twitch.tv/GamePoints. Coco Fataco says, not to sound mean, but you're surprised they survived past 2013. 2013, is that when Red Faction Armageddon came out? I think that was, or that's also, I think, when THQ went kaboom and then they got bought off by Nord. Trying to remember exactly where they were in 2013, but I think those were the games of the time. It is a shame to see Volition go bye-bye, though, because I loved Free Space. Admittedly, it's a game franchise that has been dormant for almost 2 decades now at this point, but goddamn, is that not one of the most memorable space sims to ever come out, in a genre that really hasn't had any love lately. You can point to Eve, but that doesn't feel right. You can point to Star Citizen, but as far as I'm concerned, that's vaporware until we actually get something from it. But I used to love that game. You'd have Free Space, Freelancer, Wing Commander, X-Wing. That genre was so good. And then one day, it stopped. And that was around the same time consoles really started getting real big and PC gaming kind of waned quite a bit. And the space sim, you really can't do well on console. Colony Wars aside, which is a great game. But when PC started to fall out of favor in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, is when the space sim kind of dried up. Although we have a little bit of a renaissance going on right now for it. You have the excellent Everspace 1 and 2 out. You have Chorus, which is a fantastic little space sim. Really enjoyed that. So there's some good stuff out there if you're a fan of it. But yeah, that is a shame about Volition. That sucks. Our hearts go out to them and to anyone at Gearbox, to anyone at Campfire Cabal, or any of the other myriad studios that Embracer. More layoffs, specifically from Embracer Company, but they will be industry-wide. Please be ready for them. I am begging you, please be ready. Another sign that the things are going to be getting worse. Here's one of the more recent PlayStation blogs talking about the PlayStation monthly games, but we don't care so much about that. Worth noting, Saints Row is one of the upcoming PlayStation monthly games that are going to be free in September, but we don't care about this. What they tried to hide is right here. New pricing changes to PlayStation 12 months plans. Now let's get past all this bullshit. We don't care. This is what we're looking for right here. They tried to hide this shit. Remember, you always bury bad news, but you don't shut up about good news. Go to the blog here. We also want to let you know that starting September 6th, we'll be increasing the price for PlayStation Plus 12-month subscriptions globally across all benefit plans. They are essentially going to go up as follows. I'm going to read these in American. Feel free to look at your own conversions later. The 12-month Essential plan is going up to $79.99. The 12-month Extra plan is going up to $134.99. And the PlayStation Plus Premium 12-month is going to be $160. This is a ludicrous increase in price. The PlayStation Plus Essential plan is going up to $80, what was from $60. That is a 33% increase overnight, essentially, because they released this a week before they did it. They tried to sneak it in before anyone was aware of it. The Extra is going up from $100 to $135. Once again, another 33% increase, roughly. And the Premium is going up from $120 to an absurd $160 a month. Now you figure that when you're increasing prices and you say things like maintaining the quality and giving you better games for bang for your buck, that you would have something really great for the month of when you're doing that, for in this case, of September. But you fucking give us Saints Row and Generation Zero? Generation Zero was so horrendous, I refunded it on Steam after an hour. And I typically don't do that with video games, but that's how bad Generation Zero was. Black Desert, I have no opinion on it. It's another Asian MMO that just kind of bounced off of me, and I know very little about the details on that one. But god damn, this is ridiculous. Take a look at chat here. People threw a fit when Game Pass increased to what you consider still a reasonable price. I agree. The Game Pass increase was expected to keep up with inflation, but still in my mind within the realm of reasonability. Going up from 60 to 80 bucks for just to play games online, and this is what you lead that month with, kind of fucky. Especially that PlayStation Plus Extra going from $100 a year to $130 a year. And let's not even talk about the premium, which is already not necessarily worth it to begin with. Adding an extra 40 on top of that? No. Once this happened, I immediately downgraded all the way down to Essential. Yes, I know I should have canceled, but I do play PlayStation games online. That is unfortunately the price that I still have to pay for the moment until I find a way around that, which probably just means going harder on PC games, but that is future me's problem. There are rumors, of course, of a state of play coming around to talk about this and PlayStation's future soon TM with parentheses around it. There's always a rumor about state of play, so I don't know how much faith I put in that, but it is coming from a little bit more of a reliable source, in this case, Jeff Grubb. But not a good look on Sony, and especially not a good look when you're giving away a game on the month that you're increasing the price from a studio that closed in no small part to how bad Saints Row was. And then Generation Zero as your fucking other one. It's comical. It is fucking comical. Let's see. For $160 a year, you would pay if it came with like 2 terabytes of cloud storage. Yeah, maybe. I don't do cloud storage myself. I don't have anything that massive that I ever need it for. But that could be interesting. I do some cloud storage, but not. I don't see myself ever using up 2 terabytes. So that might not work for me. More power if it works for you. We have one more news story that I want to get into. That's a decently large one as opposed to a couple small delays. This here from Video Game Chronicle. Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition leaked by the US Ratings Board, which essentially confirms this is coming, although not officially announced yet. Ratings boards typically don't go around making up random shit just to start rumors, so this is happening, in my opinion, to be fair. As spotted by Twitter user Mascos380, the Entertainment US Software Ratings Board, the ESRB as you all know it, recently classified the unannounced Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition. The game is listed as coming to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series S and X, and Nintendo Switch. Ubisoft has been planning a sequel to 2003's Beyond Good and Evil for the better part of 2 decades. It first teased Beyond Good and Evil 2 with a trailer in 2008, although this was followed by almost a decade of silence before the title resurfaced at E3 in 2017, where the publisher then revealed it will take the form of the prequel and has been in development hell ever since. I'm going to drop something that some people will find heretical on you, but is nonetheless still 100% true. Beyond Good and Evil was not really that great of a game. It was fine. What fueled its weird cult-like obsession was the fact that it was a fine game that never really got all that much attention, was kind of a bit of an indie darling despite being made by Ubisoft at the time, and was reasonably rare. Not rare along the lines of like Suikoden 2, Valkyrie Profile, Kuon, Rule of Rose rare, but rare enough that that the masses didn't really have exposure to it, even through a rental store, back when rental stores were still a thing when the game came out. The game was okay. It was word of mouth and hype and an inability to actually find it anywhere that launched it into its quote-unquote legendary status. But it certainly does not deserve that level of praise, nor does it deserve all the attention we get to it. At this point, I talk about it because it's kind of a freak show. The game was teased in 2008 with the main character there, Jade, sitting with the pig on a trailer on the side of a dusty road, looking like something out of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And that's all it was. And then it just goes away again. And it takes a full 10 years for them to say, hey, it's completely different than it was before, looks nothing like the original game, and it's a prequel, and people still went gaga over it. No. Vaporware. And deserves to just go away. Beyond Good and Evil 2 was fine, but much like my love for Free Space, that does not need to come back in this day and age. I would love Free Space. I'm sure a few people out there would love Beyond Good and Evil 2, or even the first one again, but this is not as good as people think it is. I'd be very curious to know what this anniversary edition is going to be, given that name and given Ubisoft's also financial difficulties of their own. as well as their inability to seemingly get anything fucking off the ground. I fully expect it just to be up-res to maybe 1080. I wouldn't even be surprised if it was running beyond 30 FPS. It's probably going to be only 30 FPS. It would be a bare bones port of a PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube game. That is what I'm expecting from this. And I would expect it within the next probably month or so, maybe 2 months if it's at the ESRA already. If you're frantically looking forward to this, more power to you. But you probably already own a copy of it. Please, though, just let this game rest. Please, I'm begging you. And at the very least, let it just go away until there's something to be shown about it. Because remember, Beyond Good and Evil 2, we don't even have gameplay of. There was that weird musical deal, by the way, too. I think with, what was it, Tobey Maguire and his, like, kind of indie discovery thing. I wonder whatever happened in that. I have to look into that. You all know what I'm talking about, right? All right, that wraps things up for the major stories. We've got 2 delays I want to mention real quick. First up, Alone in the Dark, delayed until January 16th, 2024. This is the upcoming horror game featuring Stranger Things' David Harbour as Edward Carnby. Looked interesting, but they straight up allude to it in this poster on Twitter that October is too stacked. No one wants to go up against Spider-Man. No one wants to go up against everything else that is currently just dropped. Delay it to a time when nothing else is coming out. Try to get some of that Dying Light 1 energy. Also, and this admittedly, I just went on a rant about remakes and reboots and how you need to let some things die. But there are some hills I will die on. And what has a more devoted, and I think, in my opinion, more people played it fan base than Beyond Good and Evil, Suikoden 1 and 2. The Great Ruin and Done in Unification Wars remaster from Konami, delayed out for 2023 to some nebulous time in the future. We don't know exactly when. I know. I get it. I am really looking forward to this. This one bums me out a little bit because I love Suikoden 1 and Suikoden 2. I think they're amazing games. And I know going on that rant about Beyond Good and Evil getting a remastering edition makes me look a little bit hypocritical that I'm upset that this is happening. But between the 2 games, this has a more storied legacy than Beyond Good and Evil does. And it's actually a good game. I just want to say it. Anyways, that wraps things up for the news and delays and all that good stuff, which means we're also done with the show itself, too. This has been GamePoints episode 365, and thank you all for showing up. We do stream this live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at twitch.tv/GamePoints. So come on by and join the conversation. If you can't join us live, we also put this up on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, all those good hosting platforms where you can comment, subscribe, post, share, all that good stuff. Let me know what your guys' opinions are. Just try to keep it civil if possible. There's a Discord group you can join, link provided down there, as well as links to all the stories we talk about today. And you can follow myself on X at CapitalistPig21. I do stream throughout the week as well here at twitch.tv/GamePoints, so come on by. Catch what I'm playing. Might be Dave the Diver, could be some Paradox strategy bullshit like Hearts Are and Stellaris. Who knows? I tend to play whatever I feel like at the moment. I hope to see you all then, but until that time comes, this has been GamePoints, and I'm out of here.